And gentlemen, that is all for this update. But what about the next one? T-Series Remaster. I can't believe I'm saying this, but somehow my stupid joke turned out to be right. BeamNG 0.32 has another T-Series remaster, and there's a lot more to it than anyone would have imagined. And as if that wasn't enough, this update also brings an incredibly anticipated car remaster, as well as a whole bunch of cool features, and even early access to future editions. Yeah, you're gonna want to watch this one until the end. And talking about early access, keep in mind that, as usual, all footage is from a pre-release version, and that some things may be different when the update comes out. Now, if you remember from the previous update, we were missing the cement mixer upfit for the T-Series, and the devs reassured us that it would be coming in a future update. And well, as expected, here it is. And I'm very happy to say that it was well worth the wait, because the detail on this is awesome.
You want to subscribe?
Because as soon as we reach 1 million, I will finally be removing the goggles. As for interactability, it leaves a bit to be desired. For now, you can only turn the mixer on and off, and change the direction in which it rotates. There are 2 buttons right above that would supposedly control its rotation speed, but unfortunately, they can't be interacted with. Oh wait, almost forgot, we can now play with this slidey thingy. Finally, the cement mixer comes in 2 different configurations, and compared to the old one, it's built on a slightly longer frame. But remember what I said earlier, this is another T-Series remaster, and there is a lot more to talk about. Technically, this isn't another remaster, but the second part of the T-Series remake, and it features interactable switches for headlights, fog lights, and emergency lights, more engine parts and exterior customization options, and updated configurations. Now if it stopped there, everyone would be more than happy. But what if I told you those were just the small improvements? Yeah, the devs forgot to sleep again. In the previous update, we got pneumatic simulation for air compressors, air tanks, and air-operated brakes. And in this update, there is a new member to the pneumatically simulated family, air suspension. Now you may remember that we already had air suspension in 0.31, but it was pretty basic. Now it is actually simulated and connected to the truck's air system, which allows it to do all sorts of cool stuff. For example, it features a leveling valve, which will try to maintain the same suspension height regardless of the load weight, until it can't. This also means that you can manually adjust the suspension height by pressing the T and G keys on your keyboard, and see how it affects your air system thanks to a new gauge on the dash. And by the way, the sounds you're hearing are now based on simulated airflow rates, which is so sick. And on top of all this cool suspension stuff, we also have a new type of upfit. Yes, we have logging trucks, with 2 really good looking configurations, which alongside the new mixers and the Hammerlane Special, brings the total amount of T-Series configurations from 29 up to 34. And so, that is all for the T-Series. But since we now have log haulers, that's right, we have a brand new log prop, and man, does it go hard. This bad boy comes in plenty different sizes and flavors, including birch, applewood, cypress, and many more. And of course, being the BeamNG devs, each species of wood has its correct real-world density, which means 2 logs of equivalent size, but from different species, won't have the same weight. And it doesn't end there. Another way to affect the weight of your log is by adjusting its length and diameter from the tuning menu. But if really stupid amounts of weight is what you're looking for, then I think you'll be better off by spawning an entire stack of logs. And yes, you can individually adjust the length and diameter of each one. But if for some reason you want even more weight, then wood simply won't cut it. Which is where this update's second new prop comes in. This is the steel coil, and you can configure it to weigh anywhere from 2 tons to 60, making it the single heaviest object in the game. After this, and thanks to these props, we also get a brand new dedicated logging trailer with a healthy selection of configurations, as well as new configurations for the flatbed trailer, loaded up with various assortments of steel coils. And talking about trailers, the tanker trailer has also received a minor glow up, with a new paint design and super cute single axle configurations. And so, that is all for the truck stuff, but there is still so much more to talk about, starting with this. the Ibishu BX. What we used to know as the 200BX has been beautifully remastered. But before I show you all of its improvements, I'll take this opportunity to clear some confusion. This is a vehicle remaster, which means it features a heavily updated 3D model, brand new textures, and more variety between the configurations. In addition to remasters, there are two other types of vehicle updates in BeamNG. Remakes, such as the T-Series and 0.31, are a step above remasters in terms of quality. And as the name suggests, they feature vehicles that have been completely remade from scratch. On the other hand, we have refreshes, such as the ETKs in 0.28, which feature a slightly updated 3D model and a mix of brand new and updated textures. I hope this cleared any confusion around these words, and from now on, I'll be using them accurately. Anyways, back to the Ibishu BX refreshed remake. Starting from the outside, the improvements are quite obvious, with higher quality textures and a much more detailed 3D model. And if instead of doing a side-by-side, we flip between the before and after, it's even easier to notice what's changed. And inside, the improvements are even bigger, both at the front and in the back. And the updates don't stop there. Under its skin, there's a completely reworked suspension geometry, which makes it a joy to drive, as well as a slightly different sounding engine. And finally, the trunk has been changed to a liftback hatch, which means the BX doesn't classify as a coupe anymore. Now you may wonder why the devs would ever do that. Well, of course, in order to introduce a brand new coupe body style. This is the Diana variant of the BX, and it looks like if the R32 Skyline and the S15 Silvia had a baby. In my opinion, it looks awesome, but I'm also the guy who drools over the pigeon, so let me know in the comments how you feel about the Diana's looks. As for configurations, they have literally doubled, and maybe that's because each config now has a right-hand drive JDM variant. But that's also thanks to the introduction of special editions, more custom builds with brand new body kits, and a rally version. Unfortunately though, we do lose the shitbox and the demon, but to compensate, the notorious undriftable drift configuration has been completely reimagined, and thanks to a much wider steering angle, you can now actually drift it. And with this heartwarming piece of information, we have also covered the Ibishu BX remaster. But unfortunately for my sleep, there is still a lot more to talk about. Let's begin with something you may have noticed during the BX interior and sound comparisons. Dynamic mirrors, which are finally available on all vehicles. Be careful though, as they won't be very kind to your frame rate, at least until we get a stable release of the Vulkan API. And on the topic of mirrors, some cars have received a physics revamp to the wing mirror structure, which allows them to be manually folded instead of breaking off immediately. Just to be clear, this does not mean you can press a button to fold in your mirrors, but who knows, maybe we'll see something like that in a future update. Something else that has received a revamp is drifting, not in terms of physics, but in how the game detects it. Basically, the drift detection system is now much more precise, meaning you can now chain drifts without losing all your points. And talking about points, the drift scoring system has also been improved, and it now rewards the player based on speed, angle, and even how close you get to walls. And on top of that, the drift detection system is now always running in the background, thanks to which we now have drift statistics. Now, I know what you're thinking. Does all of this mean we will be getting more drifting content in future updates? Maybe. Next up, there is a new automatic crash camera in free roam, which will kick in when it thinks you're about to die. By default, it will be disabled, but if it tickles your fancy, you can enable it in the camera settings. We also get quite a few improvements to West Coast USA, including updates to the quarry, concrete batching plant, and residential area. But my favorite change are the improved road markings and intersections. Then, we also get more simplified traffic cars for improved performance. I actually thought all cars had already been simplified for traffic, but it turns out that there is still room for better performance. And finally, all of the loading screen images have been updated. And man, do they make me want to drive, though for some reason, the main menu ones are still the same. Why? And on that terrible disappointment, let's talk about the 2 early access features in this update. Starting with something I sneaked in while talking about the props, a brand new user interface. And I have to say, it looks so much better. Plus, it's also much more responsive, both when it comes to expanding categories and switching tabs. But the real godsend, and something that I've begged to be added so many times, is the ability to search within the drop-down menus. For the time being, this new user interface is only available in the Vehicle Config tab, and you can try it out for yourself by pressing this button. That being said, remember that this is not final and that you may encounter some issues, just like with the second early access feature. Yup, they added speed cameras.